There's someone you know. Maybe it's a coworker, a family member, a friend. Something goes wrong, genuinely wrong. Car won't start. System crashes. Pipes leaking. Someone in full emotional freefall. And this person just pauses. No visible panic. No frantic searching. They get quiet for a moment, and then they just start handling it. And you're standing right there thinking, why is my first instinct always to completely fall apart? What's actually going on inside people like that? Because it's not what most of us assume it is. Let's start with something that'll probably reframe the way you see competence entirely. Back in the late 1970s, psychologist Albert Bandura introduced a concept called self-efficacy. Strip away all the academic weight, and what you're left with is simply this: your belief that you personally are capable of dealing with what's right in front of you. Not a vague sense of positivity, something specific, something that says, I've handled difficult things before, and this thing in front of me can also be handled. Bandura found that this belief alone changes how long people keep trying when things get hard, and how much energy they pour into a problem before they quit. That's enormous. That's the whole game, right there. So where does that belief come from? This is where it gets genuinely interesting. Think about the first time someone, maybe as a kid, actually tried to fix something and it worked. Something small. They jiggled a wire and a light came back on. They restarted a device and it responded. They pressed on a wound and the bleeding slowed down. That tiny moment does something that has absolutely nothing to do with the object being fixed. It rewires the relationship between that person and the concept of problems itself. Suddenly, the world isn't just something that acts on you. It's something you can reach into and actually change. And from that point forward, every time something breaks, their nervous system doesn't go into crisis mode. It shifts into a kind of mild, alert curiosity. Oh, this is a puzzle. I've done puzzles before. Bandura called these moments mastery experiences. And research consistently shows they're the single most powerful source of that competence belief. Not being told you're capable, not watching someone else handle things, actually doing it yourself, with your own hands, and watching it work. There's another layer here that most people never talk about. Psychologist Julian Rotter spent years studying what he called locus of control, which is basically the degree to which you believe that your own choices and actions actually determine what happens to you, versus the idea that life is mostly luck, fate, or forces outside your influence. People who land on the internal side of that scale aren't just better at fixing practical things. They show lower rates of depression. They handle stress more effectively. They stay persistent longer. This has been documented across different cultures and age groups. Believing that your effort actually matters turns out to be one of the most psychologically protective traits a human being can develop. Now here's the part that'll probably surprise you. When a person who seems to know how to handle everything walks into a broken situation, they're not walking in with certainty. They don't have some internal guarantee that it's all going to work out. They feel the same uncertainty that you feel. What's different is that the uncertainty isn't experienced as a verdict. It's a starting point. Psychologists call this tolerance of ambiguity, the ability to stay functional inside a situation where you don't yet know the answer, where the outcome is genuinely unclear, and not collapse while you work through it. People who struggle with ambiguity need resolution immediately. They need to know it will be okay right now. When that reassurance isn't available, anxiety fills the space and everything freezes. The fixer in your life learned somewhere along the way to be okay in that uncomfortable middle zone. But here's something important I want to be honest about, because not all fixers operate from the same place. Some people who know how to handle everything for everyone, emotionally, logistically, practically, learn to do that not from genuine strength, but as a survival strategy. The approval was in the solution. Being helpless at some point in their past was genuinely unsafe. So their nervous system made a rule: I'll never be helpless again. That's a coping mechanism that looks like a superpower from the outside. The sign is when you ask this person to let someone else handle something. They can't sit still. They hover. They give advice nobody asked for. An unsolved problem in their environment feels like an unsolved problem inside themselves. And then there's the other kind, the one genuinely worth becoming, the person who fixes things because broken things actually fascinate them. The gap between something not working and something working is, to them, one of the most interesting spaces in existence. These people will take apart something they already fixed, just to better understand how it worked. They'll explain what went wrong with a level of detail that serves no practical purpose, but that they're genuinely delighted by. These are people who fell in love with the process of figuring out, not just the outcome. Spending time near people like that recalibrates you, because what they model without even trying is that not knowing something is just a temporary condition. Broken isn't a permanent state. Before we go further, I want to take a second to mention something. If this channel is giving you the kind of content that actually shifts the way you think about yourself and other people, please subscribe, because we go deep on the psychology of behavior, identity, and growth every single week, and you don't want to miss what's coming next. Now here's something worth sitting with. You might be watching this and recognizing yourself as the person who outsources every broken thing in your life. And I want to say this directly, that's not a character defect. It's a history. It's a set of experiences that trained you to see problems as things that happen to you, not things you can move. And that's not a permanent condition. Bandura's entire model says that self-efficacy is built through experience. Small wins, tiny moments of, I tried something and it worked. Not heroic, dramatic rescues. You tightened one screw. You made one call you'd been avoiding. You didn't wait for someone to come and rescue you from the situation. That's where it starts. That's the whole foundation. But here's the thing that people rarely talk about. Understanding yourself clearly is only half the equation. Insight on its own tends to just become more material for your brain to loop over. You see the pattern, you name it, you think about it for 2 weeks, and nothing in your actual life changes. The gap between knowing and doing is where most people get permanently stuck. That gap is exactly what the self-mastery system was built to close. If you spend time learning about self-efficacy and locus of control and all the psychology we just covered, but still find yourself stuck in the same hesitation cycles, still putting off the things that actually matter, still feeling like you understand your problems but can't seem to move through them, this is the thing that bridges that distance. It's not a single book or a motivational course. It's a complete system, 30 comprehensive guides and over 210 interactive tools, built to address your mindset, your habits, your productivity, and your sense of purpose all at once. Not as separate things you patch together, as one cohesive structure. Go from self-doubt to actual confidence. Stop the scattered, exhausting multitasking and replace it with deep, focused work that produces real results. Build the kind of habits where small, consistent actions compound into something genuinely significant. And stop living a life of endless busyness and start living one with actual direction. Right now there's a special launch price. So if this sounds like the structure you've been looking for, check the description below for all the details. Coming back to where we started, the person you know who seems to handle everything isn't operating on some ability they were simply born with. They were shaped by specific moments, specific experiences, and a specific relationship with uncertainty that taught them that problems are puzzles, not verdicts. That view can be developed. It's built through small repeated moments of agency, through making the attempt, through tolerating the not knowing long enough to find out. And every time you do that, you add one more data point to your brain's internal record that says, I'm someone who can handle things. That's not just a confidence trick. That's a fundamental shift in how you experience being alive. Now, if this kind of psychological deep dive is the content you come here for, you're going to want to watch the next video on your screen right now. It's about how to never get angry or bothered by anyone, using Carl Jung's psychology, and you should watch it because understanding what other people trigger in you and why is the missing layer that most personal development content completely skips over. It'll change how you respond to the most difficult people in your life. Just click on the video on your screen right now.